Isaiah 13 and 14. And it shall be as the chased roe, and as a sheep that no man taketh up. They shall every man turn to his own people, and flee every one into his own land. Kahalal, Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai Bahashem, Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well over the flock. Shalom and salutation to you brothers out here pushing the words of truth and sincerity. Shalom to all the elect, the hopeful elect. Now, this verse was sparked by a video topic that I had in mind. As my camera switches over for no reason. I have here, once the chaos begins, there won't be any turning back. Once the chaos begins, there won't be any turning back. And this is reference to movies like Greenland, I Am Legend, Silent Place 2, the opening scene, World War II, the cop scene. I'm going to select on YouTube the cop scene real quick. And I'm just going to skip through because you know how YouTube get down. I'm going to say Wu-Tang. You know how YouTube gets down. So this is the opening scene of World War Z, or the Philadelphia scene. You know, it was a regular calm day. You know, just out with the family, everybody hanging out. You know, dad, mom, the usual here in Babylon, Mystery Babylon, America. You know, you got some incidents going on where they're in traffic. Something seems a little strange and odd. But, you know, the dad's playing it off. As you can see, it's business as usual. Just a busy day in Philadelphia streets. I guess he hears the noise. He goes outside his car. You know, a little bit of this, a little bit of that's happening. Now it's starting to be a little more commotion. But things are still regular. And then, you know, the big scene happens. Apocalyptic scene. That changes everything. From that moment on, there's no going back. As you can see, cars and vehicles smashing through, chaos in the streets, people acting like mad, you know, people acting mad and insane. Okay, a garbage truck is just going through, piling through people. The children begin to scream. All right, sanity begins to get unraveled and entangled. Very chaotic scene. Mother desperation, trying to save her children. Father trying to escape. More chaotic scenes, people in the street, all right, death coming, people running for their lives, scrambling, fear, all right, the pain and anguish on people's faces, all right, everyone going out for themselves, all chaos ensuing. Well, these are they're called disaster movies. You know, you got to just run and flee for your life. These are like my favorite style of movies. Now, that's enough of that scene. But as you go back into these scriptures, Isaiah 13 paints the most beautiful picture of what exactly is going on, what exactly is going to be occurring in these days that the Bible prophesies as the time of the end, or the time of great tribulation, all right, or the time of the Lord's wrath and fierce judgment, the time of the downfall and judgment of Babylon, the destruction of Babylon. It's all written about in Isaiah, the 13th chapter. All right. It's titled The Doom of Babylon Predicted. And so I'm going to begin with verse 6 and just bring out precepts. It says, how ye, for the day of the Lord is at hand, it shall come as a destruction from the Almighty. So we have to know where this destruction is coming from. It's from the Almighty. All right. The distress upon man during that time is the howling that's going on. Men don't just go out and howl. We're not monkeys. We're not wolves. But the howling represents the fear and the stress that's overwhelming the people of Babylon at this time. Babylon being modern day America. All right. Now this time is going to be the time of Armageddon. All right. The time of the Lord's wrath, fierce judgment. All right. The precept for this is Isaiah 2 and 12. It says, for the day of the Lord of hosts shall be upon every one that is proud and lofty. All right. Proud and lofty are synonymous with the words mighty, proud and mighty. All right. Pretentious, arrogant and haughty. It says, and upon everyone that is lifted up. It's another way of saying proud or exalted. It says, and he shall be brought low. So that's the coming calamity of mankind, right? The ones who do not hear the words and the prophets and aren't listening or hearkening to the words of the Lord. They'll be the proud and haughty that'll be howling in that day. Isaiah 10:3 says, and what will ye do in the day of visitation? The visitation is referring to the Lord's return when it's prophesied that the Messiah, Yahweh Shah, a so-called black man, by the way, is going to come a second time, aka the second coming, right around the time of the Battle of Armageddon. All right, this third world's war that's going to take place in the Middle East. This is going to be the anger and the wrath of the Most High kindled. It says, and what will you do in the day of visitation? And in the desolation which shall come from far. So we understand the visitation of Yahweh Shah and his holy host of angels with him, and the desolation, which is the battle of Armageddon, all right, is the same thing. It says, to whom will ye flee for help? And where will ye leave your glory? Because this is going to be such a catastrophic day, all right, of judgment, that people will be in so much fear and terror that they won't be able to escape it, even when they think they will. Let's go on. Verse 7, therefore shall all hands be faint, and every man's heart shall melt. Why? Because the condition of man during the destruction of Babylon, during the beginning of Yahushua returning with his army, is going to be complete helplessness, all right, and lack of hope. That's for the ones who are not the hopeful elect, the ones who are not a part of the elect, the chosen out of the nation of Israel, that is fit for salvation and not for destruction. Isaiah 19:1 says, the burden of Egypt, behold, the Lord rideth upon a swift cloud, and shall come into Egypt. And the idols of Egypt shall be removed at his presence, and the heart of Egypt shall melt in the midst of it. So the heart of the men, all right, the heart of the people, the Egyptians, will melt within them. Why? Because the great terror of the Lord will do that to you. That's what's coming. People can expect that they will lose all sanity in this time. Jeremiah 51:30. The mighty men of Babylon have forborne to fight. Why? Because they are scared at the terror of the Lord. Once again, going back to the reference of these movies, Greenland, World War Z, all disaster movies that came out within the last 10, 20 years. They all show you the breakdown and collapse of the mind frame when all terror and chaos ensues. You don't think straight, all right? Reason escapes you, and all you're left with is fear. And then your mind plays tricks on you to make it seem even worse than what it is. And it will be bad, and it will be worse than how it ever has been. But your mind will not help you to comfort you in that day. It says, the mighty men of Babylon have forborne to fight. Now, a mighty man, that's his job, that's his position. Think about an army soldier that is cowering, all right? A Green Beret or one of these elite soldiers, you know, out of Russia, China, America, cowering under a table with his fingers in his mouth, biting his nails, shaking like a leaf on a tree. It's not what you think of when you think of mighty men. But that's how the Most High, his wrath is going to fill up in their hearts and scare them so that they can't even act accordingly. It says they have remained in their holds, meaning they don't want to come out to fight. They might have failed. They have become as women. Now, for a man to become as women is an embarrassing moment. All right. As much as women would like to be the spectacle of the world and are put on pedestals to be just as equal as men, in the minds of men, it is severely, for lack of a better word, is just a terrible position to be in as a man, to be as a woman. It says they have burned her dwelling places, her bars are broken. So this is once again the great judgment and purge that is coming upon America, Babylon. Verse 8, and they shall be afraid. So I think we got that message across now. That the people in the condition, all right, including Israelites, but the people of Babylon will be afraid. It says, pangs and sorrow shall take hold of them. They shall be in pain as a woman that travaileth. What does a woman and travail have anything to do with this? Well, a woman during her pregnancy is in all type of pain, and as soon as the baby is born, the scriptures say, the pain stops. Psalms 48:6 says, fear took hold upon them, in pain as of a woman in travail. The worst pain we've ever seen is usually a woman when she's going through labor, screaming her head off, throwing things, angrily upset because of all of the pain that her body's going through, right? The contraction pain. Well, that's how men will be, trembling, scared, fearful. Fear took hold upon them. So you can see, fear will jump on you. Okay, fear can come and fear can leave. But in this day, the day of the Lord's judgment and wrath, fear is going to take hold on men. And there's nothing they could do about it. Jeremiah 4:31, for I have heard a voice as of a woman in travail. Whose voice is that? It says, in the anguish of her that bringeth forth her first child, the voice of the daughter of Zion that bewaileth herself, that spreadeth her hands, saying, woe is me now, for my soul is wearied because of murderers. These are men speaking like this. These are men whose voices sound as if they're a woman going through pregnancy because they have lost all hope, sanity, courage, and are completely filled with fear now. So, as we continue on, both the day of the Lord cometh cruel, both with wrath and fierce anger, to lay the land desolate. He shall destroy the sinners thereof out of it. Okay. Let's see what I have here. Precept. All right. Let's jump ahead. For the stars of heaven and the constellations thereof shall not give her light. This is talking about the wisdom and knowledge escaping man at this time. The sun shall be darkened in his going forth, and the moon shall not cause her light to shine. And I will punish the world for their evil and the wicked for their iniquity, and will cause the arrogancy of the proud to cease, and will lay low the haughtiness of the terrible. I'll skip forth the verse. I read on to verse 12 because here's the point. I will make a man more precious than fine gold, even a man than the golden wedge of Ophir. And a lot of these disaster movies, consequently, when all hell breaks loose, figuratively, in America, or in all of these countries where these disaster movies take place, it's usually the male, it's one or two male, it's probably the main character that still has enough courage to make it through, enough courage to make sense of it all, enough courage to figure out what he has to do to stay alive while everybody's into a frantic, panicking mode. There's somebody that has to have some type of resourcefulness, groundedness, faith, direction in these days, and that's what we hope for during these days. Isaiah 33:6. It says, I will make a man more precious than fine gold. And it's usually men in these movies who find the way out, find the escape route, who the Most High deals with to save people and himself. It says, even a man than the golden wedge of Ophir. When you're dealing with gold, there's no gold like the golden wedges of Ophir. Now, the man being on a level that the Most High will put him on is also referred to in Isaiah 4th chapter, verse 1. And in that day, 7 women shall take hold of one man. In these days, in order for several women to take hold of one man, he has to be a titan, a baron, a powerful political force to be reckoned with. All right. tall, wise, smart, and rich, so to speak. But in that day, the day of fierce judgment, the day of Babylon's destruction, the day of the calamity and judgment of the Lord, the day of the Yahweh's return, it'll be holy men and just men and faithful men of the Lord who have retained direction and stability. And so these several women who are also in dire straits, not thinking right, will be looking for safe havens in men who are rare in those days, because most men, even mighty men, will be confronted with pains and sorrows and will be in travail as a woman in pain, or in pain as a woman who travails, right? So there won't be these thousands of men able to save and protect you in that day. And women will know this. It says, we will eat our own bread and wear our own apparel. Let us be called by thy name to take away our reproach. Right? Which is their fear and their desolation of being alone and of being unprotected. Isaiah 6. Let's go back. Verse 13, therefore I will shake the heavens, and the earth shall remove out of her place in the wrath of the Lord of hosts, in the day of his fierce anger. That's all the judgment of the wrath and the desolation of this place, Babylon, that the Most High is going to overthrow, as in the days of Sodom and Gomorrah. Isaiah 6 verse 11 says, then said I, Lord, how long? And he answered, until the cities be wasted. This is how long will this wrath continue? Until the cities be wasted without inhabitant, and the houses without man, and the land be utterly desolate. So the Most High, man, his jealousy and his anger lasts. If you look over here, Psalm 79 and 5, how long, O Lord, will you be angry forever? Will your jealousy burn like fire? This pain and travail that's going to come upon mankind in Babylon in this day, you're going to question how long? How long is good and Most High going to be upset? Because it's going to seem as if he's going to be upset forever. It's going to seem as if his anger will not be quenched. Job 9 and 6 says, which shaketh the earth out of her place, and the pillars thereof tremble. Who has the power to do that? Except the Father who created the earth. Verse 14, and by the way, when the scriptures tell you, I will make a man more precious than fine gold, when you look into that word, precious, what does it mean to be precious? Because how are several of these women that we know today, going to be taking hold of one man? How precious does this man have to be? The word precious here also means scarcer. Strong's 33:65, to be heavy, valuable, to make rare, scarcity. The scarcity of these men in that day is going to be very rare. If you come across a man in that day and he has his wits, his sanity still, that's a man of the Lord. You might want to hold on to him, sisters. You might want to seek them out now, sisters. But I'll digress. Let's get back into the point. Therefore I will shake the heavens, and the earth shall remove out of her place. This is the Third World War. In the wrath of the Lord of hosts. And in that day, in the day of his fierce anger. We all understand that's what he's talking about. All right, the fierce anger of the Lord. This is Psalms 18 and 7. Then the earth shook and trembled, the foundations also of the hills moved and were shaken, because he was wroth. The Lord is a fierce and terrible power. Fierce and terrible power. And it's been thousands of years and since the Most High has shown his power. in Ecclesiastes 9 and 11, or 8 and 11, refers to how man's hearts work and man's minds work. That if they haven't seen judgment in a long time, they think the Most High is either asleep or he doesn't exist. And so, like cancer, maliciousness, evil, and wickedness spread because mankind, people need to see the wrath and judgment of the Lord to understand that he exists. The unbelievers, believers know he exists in everything we see and do, in our cells, in biology, in plant life, in animal life, in sea life. You know, we just glance outside and take a breath at the beauty of the Most High's creation. But unbelievers, they need to see it. They need to see wrath and judgment of the Lord in order to believe, or else they continue to be evil. Matthew 9 and 36. Let's keep reading. It says here, verse 14, and it shall be as the chaste roe, which a roe is a deer, a small Eurasian deer, and a sheep that no man taketh up. When you go into Matthew 9 and 36, that's what he called Israel. But when he saw the multitudes, he was moved with compassion on them, because they fainted and were scattered abroad as sheep having no shepherd. Israel is known as a sheep that has no shepherd. But the nations and the people who are still left in Babylon during this time are those chaste roes and sheep that no man taketh up, including the nation of Israel, who are not a part of the elect. You're going to be scattered sheep chased too, because all the sinners of my people will die, save the Lord. It says, they shall every man turn to his own people, fleeing everyone into his own mind. And one of the notes I had written while I was thinking about these scriptures, it says here, each nation, let's see if I can check these boxes off. Each nation will turn to their own. It says mixed chemicals, metals can be separated. If you look at that analogy, everybody thinks when you're mixed in, you can't, everybody got to work together. No, you can separate metals. If you can separate metals after they become solid and bonded to each other, if you can separate chemicals using certain chemicals added to a mixture of chemicals, can separate chemicals that's already in there, then people can be separated, nations can be separated. I wrote the normalcy of mixed demographics will be removed once things get too crazy. So all it takes is this calamity and the judgment of the Lord and the beginning of the tribulation to come for all nations to seek their own again. I wrote, people will accept their own, rely on their own, and trust their own. Segregation or separation of nations is imminent in these times. You've seen sparkles of that and hints of that in real life, not in these movies, but in real life. Let's consider Hurricane Katrina. Let's consider LA race riots. How you had, the Korean store owners with their guns drawn on anybody who is ready to loot their stores. So races will stick to their own in these days, nations. It says people will only accept their own, rely on their own, and trust their own. All right, and Esau knows this, and he's also orchestrating it from behind the scenes. That's where order ab chaos comes from. And I also wrote here, e pluribus unum, which is on the back of our dollar bill, says out of many one. This was their system in the creation to bring all nations together for a new world order, because on that same dollar bill, Novus Ordo Seclorum, new world order, it also says that our enterprise will be crowned a success. Nuit Coeptis. This is a reference to the Tower of Babel and how, I believe it's Nebuchadnezzar tried to, during the Tower of Babel, I believe Genesis 10 or 11 chapter, bring all nations together once upon a time. And the Most High wasn't with it. He separated the nations, divided the nations for a reason. And then he struck the nations with, you know, different languages so that we couldn't, from that moment on, we couldn't understand each other. All the people of building this Tower of Babel to come together under Nebuchadnezzar. Well, America is not that far off from there. America is that all over again, trying to mix all mankind together. These are just side notes. All right. But getting back to scriptures, the last few scriptures I have left, it says, right, they shall every man turn to his own people and flee everyone into his own land. Matthew 9:36. I read that, how Yahushua called people sheep having no shepherd, Israelites in particular. And Isaiah 21:15, it says, for they fled from the swords. Oh, that's the next verse. Let me continue that. Oh no, this is dealing with Chase Row. For they fled from the swords, from the drawn sword, and from the bent bow, and from the grievousness of war. So the Chase Row analogy is dealing with people running like hell, trying to find some type of safety, some type of refuge. During the scene in World War Z when they were running, they just running because they're escaping. When people fear for their death and their lives, and they don't have an immediate sound reasoning solution, and the only solution is then left to run, get the hell out. So that's why the scripture said, they shall every man turn to his own people. You're going to find safety in your own, and flee everyone into his own land, meaning they're just going to try to escape America, the great Babylonian retreat to come. All right, fled from the grievousness of war. And that's what's going to happen in America. It's going to be like, it's war-like. There's going to be order out of chaos. There's going to be FEMA camps. There's going to be concentration camps. There's going to be insurrections. There's going to be guillotines and troops amassing. It's going to be ugly. Isaiah 17:13. The nations shall rush like the rushing of many waters, but Yahweh shall rebuke them, and they shall flee far off. Meaning they are going to run, flee far away, and shall be chased as the chaff off the mountains before the wind. So people is going to be running for their lives, to run from the fierce judgment of the Lord and the wrath to come. It says, and like a rolling thing before the whirlwind. All right. Look at Psalms 9:5. You have rebuked the nations. You have destroyed the wicked. You have erased their name forever and ever. People understand that the Most High is anger. And when his anger is kindled, all you can do is run. But he will catch you. Where can you run? Where can you go? Who can flee? The scripture tell you. So Lord willing, this video was edifying. Till next time, Shalom.